Hi friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today's video is an unscheduled and unplanned one. I was on a tarot forum this morning and there was a discussion about this Etteilla tarot deck, which was put out by Lo Scarabeo a few years ago. And I had commented that I had done a comparison between an earlier Grimaud and this particular one. And I couldn't find the video. So I figured if I couldn't find the video to link it someplace, no one's going to be able to find it. So I thought I would do a new one. So here we have it. I'm comparing the Etteilla deck by Grimaud that I received a number of years ago. In the days when I was too stupid to save the box because I thought, you had to put your tarot decks in a sack. So I regrettably threw away the box, but I know the box was a telescopic box because I remembered it. It opened this way. I had never seen a telescopic box for tarot before. I was accustomed to the tuck boxes, And I remembered that the words on the box were Grand Etteilla Egyptian Gypsies Tarot. So it was like a complicated title. And the one now by Lo Scarabeo is simply called Etteilla Tarot. It doesn't come in the same type of box. It comes in a box that is, I guess, telescopic, but the cards lay this way. And it's got a velvet touch on all four sides. There's something that's velvet or velveteen on all four sides. And here we have it. The Lo Scarabeo also came with a book, and if you read French, you're in business. And I imagine that it would be very helpful if you read French. But it did also come with two cards to facilitate the English speaking among us with, keywords for each card. Here are the backs of each deck. And I don't know if either of them is authentic to the deck. Now, the interesting story about these cards is they both came to me accidentally. I didn't seek either of these decks out, which is kind of an interesting coincidence. For the Grimaud, which I received no later than the very late 80s, very, very early 90s, but I get the sense that they were considerably older than that. I had a next door neighbor who knew I read tarot, and she was going through her stuff that belonged to a former partner, and she said, this stuff is literally going in the trash. And she had two tarot decks that belonged to a former partner. And she said, you either take it or it's going out in today's garbage, And I felt bad for the original owner, but at the same time, I was like, well, I'm not letting it go out in garbage. So I took it, and I've had it ever since. And I've been a good custodian of it, except for the fact that I tossed the box. And then the second one by Lo Scarabeo was a freebie that was given, I think it was a Kickstarter when Lo Scarabeo was putting out their Carrie Yale Visconti deck, and it was just like a gift, if you ordered that deck. So I got this kind of as a bonus deck. As far as size goes, the Lo Scarabeo is a handful of cards taller. So maybe at least a dozen cards thicker. And another obvious difference is, as far as visuals go, is that it's a lot darker. Now, I don't know if it's because the Lo Scarabeo is actually a facsimile deck where they actually photographed an actual existing deck and it just happened to be aged because it's so old, or if they decided to do that. Another obvious difference is that the words on the cards are different. In the Grimaud, we have what presumably is the French word, the English word for reversal and upright meanings. But they don't always comply with what Lo Scarabeo has. For this card, they have, that it's the questioner's card, I presume. But I don't want to say with certainty that that's the male questioner's card. Here, it looks like it is the male questioner. So it's kind of like a querent card. So, I think a lot of people like the sense that it doesn't have, the bilingual, words and things on the sides and stuff. And obviously, it doesn't have Grimaud written on it or Lo Scarabeo written anywhere. It does retain the astrological signs and the numbers. And I presume maybe the original words or the way it was really written on the original cards. When I looked at the card to say what I had here, the information card, it said it was a philological reproduction of the original deck. So it doesn't quite say that it's a facsimile, but and I don't really even know how many originals exist, if any. So you'll notice as we go through that the Etteilla deck has a different sequencing. I mean, we were already at a card that's extremely similar to the moon. Neither is called the moon. And it's already numbered the third card. So Etteilla took liberties with the sequencing of the deck that he would have been familiar with in France, which would have been a TDM, a Tarot of Marseille style. And if you know tarot, you would recognize that that this card would be the star card, because we're familiar with the Aquarian being a water bearer, which is often associated with the star card. Here we have the butterfly that we sometimes see. The Grimaud, I'm noticing, has a little bit more of a Bolognese feel as far as the proportion of the card goes. It's longer and more narrow. I think I pointed that out already, but it's striking me that it's kind of got like a Bolognese influence, but that could just be me. So here we have what, we would think of as the world card, and, it's identified as travel or voyage. And then when you reverse it, it's land or country property. So Etteilla, may have been the one who gave us first the idea of reversal meanings. As far as clarity goes, I think the image on the white paper is a lot crisper. But I think it just comes down to one's personal aesthetic. And then this one looks like the female consultant, because it's called the questionnaire. I don't know how you would say it, questionante. And then there's a woman, so. And here it says lady consultant, okay. And, here we see progress and tenacity, and here we don't have keywords. But in the upright corner, we have a different number with another French word, repose, and then an English rest. but it's not for all, just that one that I've noticed. So I think I've always thought it was interesting how I received this deck twice, essentially as a gift and unexpectedly, you know. And if you're someone who pays attention to those kinds of things and coincidences, it's always kind of interested me. And Etteilla, of course, was a fascinating guy, you know. He took tarot reading out of the closet. You know, I am convinced that for centuries Italians were interpreting the cards because, come on, you know, it's just common sense that they would have been. And he admitted that he learned the art or the skill of, you know, reading with the cards from an Italian. But he had the foresight to, you know, and the timing was right, and the locale was fortuitous to begin a profession as a professional fortune teller, you know. And the rich and famous were all interested to know if their heads were going to end up on the chopping block, you know. And so he was the first that we credit with having been a professional tarot reader. And he said that he learned the craft from an Italian, which would explain why there is an overlap of some meanings of words, you know. I think there are a number of occasions where there are cards that I would interpret, you know, the same as Etteilla would have. And it makes sense if they generally had a similar origin. I have always loved this Wheel of Fortune. But just like a regular tarot deck, it does have 78 cards, and you can more or less distinguish what they are. I want to go back to this card. Give me a second and I'll be right back. I want to check something out. The reason I paused was because when I saw that the 10 of batons had the word obstacle, it made me think of Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot by Paul Hewson, of the 10 of batons with the snake, you know, kind of posing as an obstacle. So I think clearly, you know, if you'd like a more modern deck, I'm pretty sure you'd probably like the Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot, which I think, you know, the inspiration of is of Etteilla origin, I'm thinking. So this would be 8. Oh yeah, I think so for sure, because this one in English says negotiations, and when I pulled the same card of Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot, we have what appears to be negotiations between two people. And then this represents, well, the word is a domestic, or like a servant perhaps. And then in the Dame Fortune's wheel, we have the image of a domestic running an errand. So I think I made those connections a long time ago, but I'm just being reminded of them as I'm going through these two decks. You know, I have so many decks. You know, I made a comparison video of these two years ago. You know, whenever I got this second deck, which has been a couple of years now, but I don't remember everything, you know, at the time that I got the deck or what I said. And it's been coming back to me as I'm flipping the cards, you know. And then I realized, yeah, it's Paul Hewson's deck is strongly Etteilla based, I'm sure, is what I remember. And I love Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot. I really enjoy using it. I've never felt, I don't know, comfortable, but I never felt at home with this deck. I mean, I've looked at it a lot, you know. I've made comparisons of it, you know, to other decks. I have a couple other Etteilla decks. But, and here we have the guy I'm always talking about. In my other videos. And two different French words. And here's where we must get the wish fulfillment card for number 9 of Cups. Or perhaps Etteilla got it from the Italian. Let me pause and see what the 9 of Cups, if it had been on the original piece of paper, the piece of paper from 1750 that Franco Pratesi discovered, where there were definitions for a variety of cards. Let me see if the 9 of Cups had been recorded and see what definition that had. Give me a sec. Well, there goes that theory. The 9 of Cups, as it was recorded on the 1750 document in Bologna, the 9 of Cups is written down as meaning clarification. So it's not quite the same thing as wish fulfillment, is it? So the 5 of Cups is identified as heritage. Let me pull one last Dame Fortune wheel card to see what the 5 of Cups is. Yep, we have what appears to be a grieving woman for the 5 of Cups with a box she's reviewing. So it looks like a mourning individual. Perhaps she's going through either legal things or a treasure trove of something that someone left her. So it appears as though we would have a similar meaning to one's heritage or inheritance, something like that. Oh. Ah, inheritance, okay. So, yep. If you'd like a modern day Etteilla deck, Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot is it. And I use it a lot, even though I don't use this deck. So I guess I shouldn't be intimidated anymore because I'm familiar with the Dame Fortune's, wheel tarot deck, and it doesn't intimidate me at all. And it's a good way to learn Etteilla meanings. I think, if you'd like to learn the Etteilla deck and the Etteilla way and use this deck, if you, familiarize yourself with Dame Fortune's wheel, then you'll have it. You'll have a very good understanding. The colors are a little different too. I don't know if you're picking it up, but you can see it in the yellows. This is a brighter yellow, and this is more of a mustard yellow or an orange yellow. You may have been picking it up on the yellows of the bottom portion of some of these cards. So if anybody is familiar with what I have here on my left, if you can tell me what year this might have been, I'd appreciate it. I think it's also interesting that Etteilla's deck is ordered in such a way that the 78th card is the Fool card, or the equivalent of the Fool card. So he did things his way. What a pretty card this is. I always thought this was a pretty card. Isn't that lovely? And I think it's even prettier in the original, or in the older version that I have, not the original. This actually might be closer to the original. I don't know. So here he has red leggings, and here he has, oh, I thought that was his flesh, but it's not. It looks like it's, oh, okay, it's the underside of the skirt, of the drapery or the cloak or whatever it is that he's wearing. So I did something wrong. I just put them in the wrong sequence. Interesting. I mean, it's a beautiful deck, and I've always been attracted to it because it was beautiful. But by the time I got this one, you know, in the late 80s, I had already been doing tarot probably for going on 15 years by that point. And I was, you know, so deep, you know, already entrenched in being familiar with Besançon, or, you know, the Italian, when I finally got my hands on a Visconti deck, or the TDM, that I wasn't quite sure what to do with this deck other than admire it. And I, you know, as I've mentioned before, I don't think it was until I got Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot that I made the connection that this was, you know, largely based on this, because I recognized, I compared them together, you know, and I realized that they had meaning, that the images depicted here seemed to jibe with what I was seeing on these cards. And so it kind of took away a little bit of the mystery and made it a little bit more approachable and understanding to understand what I was looking at here. I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll start using this deck. It was given to me twice as a coincidence, it seems. So I guess I was meant to have it. And here we are with the last card, which visually we can recognize as the Fool, or folly, madness. So I hope this has been somewhat insightful for you. And until next time, friends, peace and stay well.